I wish I'd known about Sein back in 2019, and I'll come back to why, because regret is something we've all experienced and all struggled with, but I think a single character has shown me the best way to move past it. So you don't need to have seen it for this video, but Frieren is full of these well-written, lovable characters that make you reflect on all aspects of your own life. It has this strange, clever way of using these otherworldly circumstances to make you see your own differently. And yet, somehow the one who stood out the most to me, who reframed so much of my past life in a really beautiful way and made me see the future far more optimistically, was a human, humble priest named Sein. So from his first introduction, there was just something about him that I really related to. You know, I'm really not sure what it was.
Wouldn't you like to travel with an older lady on your arm?
The thought of that very scenario was why I wanted to be an adventurer in the first place.
Truly a mystery. Anyway, in episode 13, Frieren is just kind of staring at this priest who's stuck in a swamp and slowly sinking, who says he wanted to be an adventurer when he was younger, but then immediately dismisses it as just a dumb dream children have. And that kind of, oh, it doesn't matter anyway, is something we've all done to mask the real reason we're not doing something. And we'll come back to that. He talks about how his childhood friend once asked him to go on an adventure with him. And this was once they were both adults and presumably had, you know, responsibilities and roles and whatnot, which can make it much harder to say yes to someone asking you to break away from that, right? But regardless, he really regrets not doing so. And obviously it's so much more common to regret things we don't do rather than do. For instance, we can probably all think of something we started as a kid, you know, a club, an instrument, whatever, that we wish we carried on. Whereas unless you got some life-changing injury, the opposite probably isn't true. We're then introduced to his brother, who talks about how Sein's gone from wanting to be an adventurer to taking on the mundane activities of an ordinary priest, spending every day the same way. Yeah, the show's getting a little too real now. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. So that intro about, you know, 2019, the year before COVID, I was in my second year of university, living out the same day every single day and absolutely hating it. But what I hated even more was that feeling of wasting what I'd always heard would be the best years of my life. But more on that soon, because I think that's something Sein can relate to as well. His brother then asked the group to take him away from this village, as that's what he likely wants. And after Stark joins in on his multiple demonetizing activities, we found out when Frieren asked him about being an adventurer, his response is simply, "That was a long time ago, it's too late now." What? It turns out Frieren said something extremely similar when Himmel asked her to join him on an adventure, and she responded with, "It's too late now, that time has gone and I can't get it back." Which, to be honest, this has never really made sense to me. Well, not for a long time anyway. But I know it's something a lot of people struggle with, you know, well, I could have started 5 years ago, but didn't, so it's too late now. Huh? If it's something you want to do, why does that matter? So rather than starting it and 5 years from now you'll be able to say, yeah, I'm glad I started that, I've really enjoyed doing so, instead 5 years from now you're still going to be thinking, oh, I could have started 10 years ago, it's too late now. And what's even crazier, this genuinely blew my mind, I'm going to come back to my own personal experience with regrets and whatnot, but recently I posted a video called You Should Start a Sport and spoke about how I finally started playing volleyball at 25 and it's amazing and it's so fun, etc. And there were some comments from people saying, I'm 21 now, it's too late. I'm 17, I can't start now. I'm 15 now, I'm too old. Like, are you kidding me? And obviously I'm only pointing out to people younger than me because it seems crazy to me, but some of you might be older than me and thinking, well, I'm actually too old because I'm older than him. There's nothing specific about my age that changes this. There's someone 5, 10, 15 years older than you, just starting that thing you want to, and is super glad they did so. But I think there's a couple reasons for these comments, and it's different for those younger and those older than me. I think when it comes to things like sports or anything skill-based, too many people are a little too focused on the fact that, yeah, if you want to make it to the Olympics or become a professional, it probably is too late for you if you're starting in your mid to late 20s. But so what? That doesn't mean you can't start it or enjoy it or get good at it. Starting volleyball recently is one of the best decisions I've made in my life, honestly. And whilst, yeah, I do kind of wish I started earlier sometimes, it all goes back to that quote. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is now. But I think the other reason, and one that probably applies more frequently to those older than me, is that we get bogged down in routine and responsibilities, and if I wanted to start doing this, it would inconvenience this person and that person because I'd have to stop doing XYZ for them. But whilst I can't put out some blanket statement that applies to every single situation, as we'll soon see with Sein's story, I think often the people that you're worried you'd let down or disappoint by doing something, if they're worth you worrying about how they'd feel, chances are they would want you to do what feels best for you to be happy. But more on that soon. Frieren asks Sein to join their adventure, and he refuses. The group then continue to pester him, asking him to join. He continues to refuse, and as he's reminded of when his friend asked him to come with him, it's clear that despite his constant, insistent refusals, he is weighing up the idea of joining. There is a part of him that wants to join them and adventure with them, but something just isn't letting him. And this is exactly what I did at uni, and I don't know why. Instead of, rotting away in my room, I had people asking me to do things, and most of the time, I really don't know why I said no, because I always enjoyed it when I did go. But even outside of that, instead of, just sitting in my room, not taking care of myself, not doing anything, there were so many things I could have just started doing. Even just all the clubs or societies they call them, I could have joined. And looking back, I really don't know why I didn't, to be honest, but it's undoubtedly one of my biggest regrets in life. And obviously, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm now doing a lot of the things I wish I did back then. If I'd stuck with this idea of, oh, it's too late, I'd still be as miserable now as I was back then. Instead, I'm definitely the best I've ever been, and I don't know why it took so long, but there's no point wasting any more time dwelling on that. However, Sein does know why. He firmly says, "No, I'm not becoming an adventurer," revealing that his brother said he'd be back in 3 years. It's now been 10. He's very clearly dead. Frieren is equally blunt here, saying if you don't go see him now, you'll regret it in the future. You'll wonder if you could have made it in time if you'd gone now. Obviously, we don't know for sure, but it's possible in Frieren's long life, she'd had a similar situation and following that a similar regret. But she's probably referring to how she initially refused Himmel's offer of a journey and ended up being very glad she went. But then Sein reveals his real reason for not going, both now and 10 years ago. His brother was invited to serve as a priest in the holy capital, but didn't, as he didn't want Sein to have to leave his hometown. And so Sein now believes that he too has to stay here to repay the favor to his brother, much to his brother's anger, who said he's never regretted the choice he made, but asks Sein how long he intends to regret his choice. Going back to what I said earlier, the reason his brother chose to stay was not to take Sein's hometown from him. It wasn't a sacrifice to him. He felt very comfortable in that village, and even if it was a sacrifice for him, the reason he would have made it would have been to let Sein do what he wanted. Sein then making a huge sacrifice himself is not at all what he wanted, and actually kind of goes against the point of what he did, which was to enable Sein to be happy, and doing what made him happy would have been the best way to repay his brother. And after something like this, there's this kind of awkwardness no matter what decision he makes. And I think that slight awkwardness of admitting we're wrong sometimes stops us from doing what's right for ourselves, but don't let it. Sein goes to see the group and ends up joining them. And we see throughout the next few episodes that he's extremely self-aware of his own thought patterns and emotions. He sees them in others and is really sharp at picking things up. For instance, noting that Fern asked him for advice instead of Frieren likely means that she's comparing him to some other notable figure in her life, namely Heiter. And in one of his final scenes in the series, we see him venting his frustrations to Frieren about how Stark and Fern aren't dating, which seems to come from a similar place to his story, one of if you don't take the opportunity now, it could go. But regardless, just a few episodes after, Sein says goodbye to the group to go and find his friend. And you can see how hard of a decision it was for him. He's found this new group he loves traveling with, and I really wanted him to stay. I wanted to see more of him, but he's got to do what he's got to do. He's kept his friend, and more importantly himself, waiting long enough. And so off he goes. And I can only hope we get to see him again, but unfortunately I kind of struggle to see it because they're only moving further away from him. But even if we don't, we know he's living the way he wants. So now it's your turn. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it here, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you to Immortal Luke for joining as a channel member, and I'll see you all again soon.